Okay, guess what, hunters? We can now play a build that reminds me of a Gyrfalcon Hunter, with the infinite Invis and infinite volatile purple explosions that we all have come to love, but we can do it without the exotic Gyrfalcons on. And it kind of blew my mind when I was testing this build out, because it takes that Gyrfalcon build style to a whole new level on Prismatic that we have never seen before. Again, at the beginning of the gameplay here, I use my entire super bar and my transcendence form, because I want you guys to see how fast we become transcendent with this build, and then you'll see how fast we get our super back too. We incorporate Void with Infinite Volatile and InvisibiLIty like I said, and then we add in the Strand Grapple with the Unravel debuff spreading throughout the entire battlefield, and that combos so well with our Volatile debuff on enemies. So green and purple explosions everywhere you look, but we're not done there. We then add in a stick of dynamite from the solar subclass that we can chuck out every 6 seconds for a massive ignition to clear entire rooms of enemies, because the volatile and the unravel proc this for us and build our gunpowder gamble stacks. And we're still doing all of this while going in and out of Invis left and right. Next, we have to make a choice. We either choose the new Arc Super Storm's Edge or the Stasis Super Silence and Squall to add in either Amplified for a 35% damage reduction or Frost Armor for a 23% damage reduction. Personally, I choose Arc here because Amplified lasts 15 seconds on orb pickup, where with Stasis, you need to pick up 3 orbs of power to reach the 23% damage reduction, and that only lasts 10 seconds once you reach it. Plus, the new Arc Super sounds, looks, and feels great. I will say Bungie really cooked with the 3 new supers that they added. Oh, and also I forgot to mention that we get Woven Mail for 10 seconds within the build to top off our damage reduction. So like I said, I choose Storm's Edge for my super and free Amplify for a 35% damage reduction. Now for our class ability, you do want to take Gambush Dodge, just so when we dodge near an enemy, we get a full melee refund. For that melee ability, I like to take Threaded Spike with this build. It can even kill enemies in more difficult content, and when it bounces between enemies and hits 3 of them, that's a instant Gunpowder Gamble proc, which is really cool. But it also severs those beefier targets for us, so the outgoing damage they do is like 45% less. And when we combine that with all our damage reduction, it's very easy to stay alive. Plus, you do want to take a dark melee here to help build our dark meter to go transcendent. For our grenade, we take the Grapple Grenade. Grapple feels great to play if you haven't tried it yet. It hits very hard, and it applies the Unravel debuff to groups of enemies for us. Also, if you get a kill with your melee Threaded Spike or your Grapple, you're instantly gonna go invisible, which is very nice. For our first aspect, we do take Gunpowder Gamble. Defeat targets with abilities or elemental debuff damage to charge our solar explosive. It's considered a grenade, and we throw that out and nuke rooms with it. It does have a 6-second cooldown, but as soon as it goes off cooldown, you're gonna have one available because everything is attached with those elemental debuff damage, or you're using abilities to kill things anyways, like your grapple or your melee. For our second aspect, we take Stylus Executioner. This is defeating a target affected by any elemental debuff grants invisibility and true sight. So all that purple explosions and all that unravel will just make us go invisible left and right. We get 5 fragments with this build, and there is a few of them here that really make things better for us. First up, we take Facet of Ruin. This increases the size and damage of our stasis shattering, and increases the area effect of our solar ignitions. With our prismatic grenade called the Hellfire, that I know a lot of people are kind of disliking right now, well, we get a lot of extra damage out of it when it freezes and shatters the targets, and it makes the ignitions go off even bigger that's gonna happen from it. The best advice I can give you is just stick it to a higher tier enemy, someone that's easier to hit. It actually does do quite a bit of damage if you do stick it, because you will get the freeze, the shatter, and then you'll get the ignition damage. Next, we take Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. We do like our class ability just to get that melee back and its nice mobility. For our third fragment, we take Facet of Bravery, and this one's a big one with this build. Defeating targets with grenade final blows gives us volatile rounds to our void weapons. Defeating targets with powered melees gives us unraveling rounds to your strand weapons. As you can see in the gameplay, I use only strand and void weapons, and a grapple melee punch that you go in and grapple with procs both of these, because in the code, a grapple melee is considered a grenade and a melee. And if you guys didn't know this, this has a 12-second timer. It gives us volatile rounds for 12 seconds long and unraveling rounds for 12 seconds long. That's how you're gonna keep up your volatile rounds very easily. Threaded Spike hits hard to get kills, so it'll proc that, and then Grapple will proc both of them for us. And as you can see in the gameplay, we get our abilities back very quickly. For our fourth fragment, we take Facet of Protection. While surrounded, we get that nice damage reduction buff. For our last fragment, this is Facet of Purpose. This is when you pick up an Orb of Power, you're either going to get Amplified or get Frost Armor based on the super you choose. Like I said, I still like Amplified more. Now there are two main weapons with this build that shine really well, and I use them both in the gameplay. First is Graviton Lance. A lot of you guys know this Void Pulse Rifle, but it's going to put out great damage and just clear mobs of enemies. Next is Buried Bloodline. If you do have this, I would suggest using this one. It can grant you Devour and Weaken on hit, along with everything else we already went over within the build. It's an amazing sidearm, and then in your kinetic slot, I would take the Call Strand sidearm, the Rocket sidearm, and the power slot, just use either a Strand or a Void Heavy, whatever you prefer. Now for our exotic of choice, there's a couple different ways you could take the overall build. I don't need help with damage, and I have plenty of uptime on my abilities. So I went with Arachne's Facade. This is an exotic helmet on the Hunter, and you gain Woven Mail when activating Grapple. We get our Grapple back very quickly, as you can see in the gameplay, so every time that we activate our Grapple, it's going to give us that 45% damage reduction for 10 seconds, which is going to make landing that kill really easy for you. Now for our mods, we're playing into Orbs of Power and getting that super back. On the helmet, we take an Ashes to Assets and a Hands-On to work with both our melee and grapple melee. Then we take a Void Siphon to spawn Orbs of Power on Void double kills. On the gauntlets, we take a Firepower and a Heavy-Handed. Both so our melee and our grapple again can spawn Orbs of Power on kills, and Impact Induction, causing damage with a powered melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. On the chest piece, that's your damage reduction across the board, so match whatever activity you're doing. And then on the boots, we play into Orbs of Power again. Innervation for grenade cooldown, Absolution for all ability cooldown, and Recuperation to replenish health each time we pick up an Orb of Power. That gives us 15% grenade ability energy when we pick up an Orb of Power. And then on our class item, we do take a Bomber mod to add more grenade ability when we dodge near enemies, a Reaper mod, so every time we dodge and get a kill after that, we spawn another Orb of Power. And then I like Special Finisher, so when I collect 3 Orbs of Power, I can finish an enemy and guarantee special ammo for me and my allies. And that keeps the ammo up when I'm running the double special sidearms. For the artifact mods, make sure you have Galvanic Armor if you're running the Amplified Super, Radiant Orbs so you become Radiant when you pick up an Orb of Power, Shield Crush, so while you have Woven Mail, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, 25% extra damage to your grapple melee, and while you're Amplified or Radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. This is nice with our Hailfire grenade for our Transcendence form. And then lastly, Transference. Gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendent. So I hope you guys like this build. It's a different way to play the Prismatic Hunter than your normal punchy build, because I got a lot of comments of people saying they're tired of doing the dodge punch combo. Well, here's a good Hunter build for you to make up for that. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.